Okay, hi everyone. My name's Erin. I'm going to be talking about the earthquake that happened 7 years ago today in Chile. It was actually my first night there, having started my study abroad experience, and it happened about 3:30 in the morning on February 27th, 2010. So, this was an 8.8 earthquake on the Richter scale, showing some pictures of some damage. The epicenter was in, specifically was in a place called Cauquenes, I guess, but where this is, I was able to find some GIS data, historic map of earthquakes in Chile. And this was 27th of February 2010, and this is the epicenter. So I have this highlighted here. Nope, sorry, here. So where I specifically was up here in Santiago, and where I was planning to study, where I was going to be living with my host family, was over here in Valparaiso. So even though the epicenter was down here, we had, which is probably, obviously, well, it's in the ocean, but probably like an 18-hour bus ride down. There was a lot of damage in Santiago and Valparaiso. So the humanitarian relief effort was multifaceted. I was able to find some information on how GIS was involved in it, which is really interesting to me, having lived through it, and I got to help a little bit too with an organization called Un Techo para Chile, which is a roof for Chile, which is kind of like Habitat for Humanity. So I can show you some of those pictures from that effort, just a little bit interesting. So this is a town, I'll go back to my GIS map here. This is a town just north of Concepcion. Oh my goodness. Sorry. My Screencast-O-Matic is not working, so I am recording you on my phone. I am here in these photos. I won't spend too much time on this, as I know it's kind of hard to see. Okay. So as you can see, there's a lot of damage. Power lines down, water was not accessible, etc. Just a lot of damage. Okay, so I was able to find, this is just basically data on, here's where it was. And then over here, this is something really helpful. This is restrictions of where water could be taken from and delivered to. So we can see all kinds of different different ways that different places were zoned for different damage, so that we could see where, so that responders could see where water could be taken from and is not potable in different places. So I just found that interesting. Okay, and so some of the sources where I found this, unfortunately, sorry, I'm looking all over here. Yeah, so here, here is a data portal for this, for some of, to be able to turn in some data to help out the effort. Unfortunately, all of these are dead links. However, I was still able to find some good information from here, from the ArcGIS website as well. A lot of these links are not working anymore, but what was encouraging to me is to see that many of these were last modified March 2nd, 2010, March 2nd, so that February 27th, 2010, so that was, 5 days or so after the earthquake. information was uploaded. So we see earthquake response data, grid mapping. We see street atlas for Concepcion, which is the biggest affected city nearby. And we see the shake map of the coast of Chile, which I didn't know was a word, so I thought that was kind of funny. Okay, and then also updated March 4th, 2010, an ArcGIS blog. We see their online earthquake response for Chile, and this is basically a detailed response of how to include data that you know of, that you have created or updated, and how to access the data as well. So people on the ground could access this information, and more importantly, those coordinating relief efforts could help these things out, or could help out using this data as well. Specifically, some of that data, one of the pieces of data that was represented there was this where water can be moved to and where water is needed. We also see that there's a possibility to have seen back in 2010 the viewer of the a web viewer of the affected area. And again, the street atlas for the Concepcion, which is where a lot of the damage happened. I found this to be particularly interesting because this is probably data that Techo para Chile used. That's the kind of the Habitat for Humanity type of organization. They're able to see where houses are, where a lot of poverty was. And generally, that would be the places where homes would be the most destroyed because they're not probably up to the code that many buildings would be. Which brings me to another website here, and I will list these websites that I found this information, but we see that National Geographic defines we talk about how in the mix of chaos and challenge that a natural disaster creates, we have these resources that kind of help the obstacles to be navigated. And I think GIS, the fact that it is shared, current, and comprehensive is pretty much a really good summary of that. Lastly, I also found a report actually taken 1 year later from the ambassador of Chile, and this is the United States response for the report on the preparedness, response, and lessons from the earthquake, the humanitarian response on the U.S. part. So I found a lot of this interesting, but I'll scroll down over to here, the government response. Okay. Oops, I'm sorry. Okay, down near the end of the report they have lessons learned. One of the problems observed was that communications were down for more than 12 hours. So what they were working on at that point was investment in real-time monitoring process and robust telecommunication systems with multiple backups. So, and then here we have sensors took more than 2 hours to provide information, as they saw that as a problem in the seismological and telecommunications infrastructure. So the humanitarian effort, I guess, was slowed down initially, that first 12 hours, by simply not having the technology that was required. And in the alerting system, mass communication channels weren't used, so that was a response as well. So that to me gave some insight into what their humanitarian effort could be based on what geographic information they're able to find, whether it's remote sensing or any other mapping processes. So that's pretty much it. This is a project that was interesting to me because it was, again, 7 years ago tonight, and I think we were able to see that I was able to see on the ground some of the humanitarian efforts, and then during this project I was able to kind of zoom out and understand how they were able to know where those homes were that really needed to be rebuilt, in those areas of poverty that were probably the most affected as well.